Santa Claus is coming to town.
Hi, Jeff Holland from Drum234. The crash and the hi-hat pads didn't work, and I tried everything in the module to check sensitivity, check the ends, and we got a sound from the cables but never from the pads, and so I had given up. And I thought they were, this is the Yamaha DTX500, and I thought they were about $80, but they were more like $150. I watched some YouTube videos, and that's the reason that I'm making this one, is of all the YouTube videos that I researched, there was a lot of modifications that were way over my head, and a lot of work on rolling pads, and I found out that the Yamaha pad is very similar, and so I wanted to share what I found at least to be a quick fix. There are 4 screws that are in the outer corners of this oval piece, and when you gently slide it forward, here's the input jack, so you want to go a little bit forward but up and just kind of work it off. Now be gentle. I realized when I took this one apart, you can see the circuit board is actually loose, so the first thing I tried to do was just tighten the screw, and it was kind of bottomed out. I wasn't sure why it wouldn't lock the circuit board in place, but I tried a couple different things, didn't work, and then I realized that the piezo trigger input was actually disconnected from the circuit board. It was just sitting over it and hovering. Well, upon investigation, there's a little cutout in the back of this molding, and that's where that trigger sits inside of that housing. And I guess it's just supposed to keep it on by pressure, but under extreme pressure of some playing, then it seems to all loosen up, and that caused the piezo from not triggering at all, or maybe at first mistriggering, like you would hit it once and it wouldn't make a sound. You'd hit it really hard and it would make a sound, so then of course that would encourage continually playing it harder. So the quick fix that I have is basically just to hold this connector in place long enough to secure it with a piece of electrical tape. I didn't want to glue it because, like I said, this is connected to the piezo that you may want to change at some point in time if it goes out. And so I don't think it was ever glued to the soundboard, but what happens is as it has moved around and become loose, it just won't stay in contact anymore. So I'm going to measure a piece to go just a little bit over the end, and this will pay off in a little bit, because I want to wrap around the circuit board enough to where the screw catches at the bottom. See if I hold it like this. I doubt if you can see it. I'm just going underneath where it's not in the way of the housing. We're going to get it ready to go over the connector, but first I have to get those 2 sensitive little wires exactly in place. They're kind of like vampire teeth, and you just have to line them up with the hole, and then I'm going to pull my finger out. Now it's okay to tape over the back of the piezo trigger. There's no grounding in this electrical tape, so it's really okay against the circuit board. As I'm putting this back together, I noticed that the other one, retighten this set screw, making sure that it's in place for all of the screw mounts. See if we can get it a little tighter this time. I'm going to add a couple of what I call rolls. So I pull a little electrical tape off. I'll say the right thing eventually. And I kind of fold it to the same size as the housing slot here, and you can see that it's tapered. So I started the tapered in, and it's black on black, so I'm sure you probably can't see it on the camera. And I found that one may even be a little bit bigger, but I found that 2 worked really well. I put it back together and just felt like there was a little space in the last one, and if anything, this is just adding a little more shock absorption to where if you do get excited and start frailing on the hi-hats a little too heavy, then that should keep it in place. Okay, now let's fast forward again as we put the screws in. So the trigger works, and actually there's a switch for the cup sound. You can do that on or off. I like it, so I left the cup on. But what happens, just as I found with the other ones, if you've had a pad that's been overplayed for a length of time, or who knows how long it takes for them to give out. It depends on the force and the quality of the material. But I saw another video on this this morning, and I'm gonna see if I can give you a shortened version. So basically, there's the piezo trigger here that's close to the bell, and on 3-zone pads there's actually a cup sensor too. There's the sensor at the edge that I don't think it even goes all the way around on these. I think it's pretty much just in this area because they're chokeable. And what happens is after the abusive playing, it actually builds up friction, I've heard, and creates a little rubber film and just sometimes even some little rubber fragments on top of that sensor. So that when you hit, for some reason, it mistriggers and thinks that you're choking the cymbal. So, quick fix for that is take out your credit card and go to Amazon and order another one for $150. Or you can kind of work your credit card down into the edge and there's a lip that you want to pull out. Once you get a hold of it, it's just a kind of a J channel track. But you want to be really careful as you start to pull this away. Now I know that, like I said, I don't think the sensor goes all the way around because the way the cymbal hangs, you don't really choke up there. And most of your extreme playing was here on the edge. So I would take that into consideration as your first place. So I'm going to work the edge out about halfway. That way I don't lose control of the sensor. Notice that I haven't bent the edge of the rubber up because that could possibly bind the sensor. I'm going to take a peek and see if you can see. There's the trigger on the edge. So we'll peel it back just a little bit more. Try not to catch it like I just did. It really doesn't look too dirty. In fact, I really don't see much. I find that probably be better if I did that with some electrical spray. But the trick that I saw worked on the other one. So using a little goof off, no pun intended about the operator, it's only means to the clean. So it's a pretty strong solvent, and kind of let it dissipate a little bit just so it's not too strong going onto the contact. And I'm just going to clean that edge. As I thought, it stops at the halfway point. I didn't even quite get there on the other one that I did, and it started working correctly. Now, certain settings, it may be a little more intermittent. So I have two other paper towels here. One is slightly damp, and so I'm going to use it now. Since goof off the ultimate remover is a pretty strong solvent. I don't want to leave residue of that on plastic and rubber. It could possibly eat into it. I'm just making sure that there's no other stray pieces of rubber or dust. In fact, I like to turn it like this. And we'll check the edge too. Now when you look at these two paper towels, there's definitely some aging and rubber in there. It's hard to believe that that's enough to stop the sound. And then with a dry paper towel, just making sure that everything's cleaned up, getting behind the lip of the cymbal. And just make sure that you don't pull too hard away from any of the edges. Now to get it back on, I gently lift back over the sensor, making sure that it remains flat. And it's pretty malleable stuff. I mean, it goes right back over the edge, and then I pull it flat after I make sure that the sensor was flat. Now we're still untucked, so I'm just going to slowly work my way around, and it will appear as if I was never here. And hopefully everything will be working great. I saw in some videos where they took the rubber completely off the top of the cymbal. Well, it has tacky adhesive through the middle part, and this was fairly loose, but I would imagine if you pull it all the way off, then you could possibly start getting a rattle in between this hard plastic and the rubber. And even though that it kind of tucks in around it, you want the rattle not to come from the pad as much as the sound of the drum. So the quieter that you can keep electronic drums in the practice room, the louder you can play through the headphones. So now the next step is let's finish our coffee and go see what it sounds like with the drum kit. So we're going through a final cymbal check. These have an interesting, this is actually the upgrade. This is the PCY 135, so the official 3-zone pad. Let's see what the hi-hat can do. By the way, this is a DTX500 made by Yamaha. DTX has always been one of Yamaha's most popular lines. I've had Roland V drums, I've had Pentec, I've had quite a variety of pads and triggers through the years. They all work great. Yamaha has been really roadworthy. I think with Roland, a lot of the times you have more the COSM, the cosmic sound modulation, which means you can change the settings a lot more. Yamaha typically has a lot more sequences and more standard sounds. I haven't even gone through this module yet. I have no idea about it. I'll try to spice it up a little bit, but here's a standard kit. So notice no foot on the hi-hat pedal. We've got a nice long sustain now. We've actually got some dynamics happening in different places of the pad. The triggering's not perfect. I mean, you have to learn the feel of anything. This has obviously a ride and a crash, and there's even a splash. So it's actually triggering 3 zones. Too much fun. But here's a setting. This is really one of the first ones that I found that I really wanted to play longer than 5 minutes. name's Jeff Holland from Drum 234, Drum for Work, and this is going to be a fun project again to jump into the world of electronic drums and see if I can maybe check back to those Yamaha mods and see what else we can get, this thing spiced up, just like putting some high octane gasoline into it. So I hope it holds up. If the mod doesn't work for you, or if you've got a better idea, let me know in the comments below. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Let's keep in touch.